Yo, what's going on, people? This is Let Us Cook featuring me and Baconlord. Me as in Tento. My fault. I'm not going to assume that people know me. I'm sorry, my fault. But we're going
You
to be
can
talking
assume you're
about.
Hollywood. You're Hollywood. You can say
No,
it.
I'm definitely not Hollywood. Get the fuck out of here. But what's it called? We're basically going to be discussing a little bit about the topics going on to NRS's future when it comes to that competitive scene. And Bacon is kind of kind of thinking about stuff here, like when it involves the future. Like where's the direction of this game gonna happen? But what are the goals that's gonna be? It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things we gotta think about
Yeah,
here.
yeah, for sure. I really wanted to start this podcast kind of even before we're gonna get gameplay for this game for this new game coming out because we're in the speculation phase, and which means that we could say whatever we want, and we'll probably be wrong, but no one's expecting like perfect analysis right now. We can just kind of spitball, and I think that's gonna lead to some fun conversations and. Weirdly enough, I think we know like with the Kameo Fighters that got announced. I think we know like we have a lot more to talk about than we normally do when a CG trailer drops for a new game.
Definitely do like the CGI trailer. It usually just shows off like what's more so the story
Right,
stuff. But like it leaves for the
for
gameplay to
sure.
be like vastly like we can kind of determine what's on the story, like characters wise, somewhat, but like more so the direction of what the fight name is going to be, and that's what those FAQs you saw the FAQs about
Yeah,
the
yeah.
cameo
We're
fighters and
definitely gonna
whatnot.
talk about the FAQ, but I think there's more information in the FAQ than the
Yeah,
trailer. This is not a trailer breakdown podcast. This is an FAQ breakdown. But
yeah.
before we do that, let's talk about ourselves for a little bit. Let's introduce ourselves. Make sure people know who we are. How long we've been in the scene, what we've been doing in the scene.
Oh Jesus Christ!
This is the first episode. The
You're
first,
right. You're right.
so we gotta make sure we lay a good foundation here. So,
Foundation. That's a
so
funny word for it.
yeah. So I'm Bacon Lord. Me and Tento. We're both Chicago-based NRS
Mm-hmm.
players. I've been around the scene since around Injustice 1, so getting close to 10 years, which is crazy to think about. Um, but yeah, I've been competing since Injustice 2 days. I've done both online events, offline events. I've done some commentary as well. Been around the scene for a while, know a lot of people, picked up a lot of things, and I'm excited to talk about it here.
Yeah, Bacon's a good friend of mine. I met him at our local in
Shouts to
what was that
GBS.
2019 at GBS. It was
Yeah,
hilarious because I never knew about GBS, even though I've been in the scene since MKX, and that's hilarious to think about. And I've always lived in the area that GBS is being held.
right.
But yeah, more about me. I'm Tento. I've been here since MKX days, more of a spectator side of things, and then eventually I grew out of the competition wise because I was like, you know what, I want to commentate. So I became a commentator for the community. I've commentated a couple of events, commentated a couple offlines, and have a very great time doing it. And really, my goal is just to be one of the good commentators that's in the future. That's doing all the things because it's time for the newer generation to rise up. And me and Bacon are fairly young. Me being 24, Bacon being like 30. I mean, not 30, 13. So
22, 22.
he's like 13. So yeah,
Yeah,
like
fun fact, I'll be 23 when the game comes out. Game's coming out on my
that's
birthday. That's hype.
hilarious. Hilarious. Hey, if you guys want to give Bacon a birthday present, there you go. Give him the collector's edition because that statue looks actually pretty cool. But
Yo, yo.
statue looks good.
It
Statue
looks
definitely
it's
looks
kind of
good.
neat, dude. You saw
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much about us. We met early stage in the game. I was like, this guy's a spammer. He's like,
Yes,
you're just
sir.
weird. Why do you play noob? And then over time, we developed a friendship of honestly just constantly arguing over takes because both of us do not agree with any of our takes, which is going to make this podcast even more funny.
For sure, for sure. We've had a lot of podcasts already. We just never recorded them. Uh,
Literally, actually,
so this
actually,
should be
literally.
this should be a lot of fun. And let's talk about the podcast a little bit. What about the goals for this podcast? Because when I was talking to you about starting for this, I kind of felt like there's a real gap in the scene right now. There's not a lot of really good long form kind of discussion content going around. A lot of the content now are like a lot of Twitch streamers doing great
Reaction
job.
videos.
Yes, reaction videos, doing rank stuff. You got that other side of NRS content, where is let's call it lying,
Yeah, trolling.
with thumbnails,
Clickbait, if
telling,
you will.
yeah, or covering leak content, which we will not be doing here.
Yeah, nah.
Um, and a lot of like speculation videos on like, oh, what characters do we think will get in and stuff like that. But we really wanted to focus on the competitive scene for NRS. That's where we come from. That's what we're primarily interested in. And so we're going to talk about a lot of the stuff in the context of competition and what this means for the tournament scene and kind of like how new mechanics as they get announced will impact high level play and just, stuff like that, right? Real focused on kind of the mechanics of the game and the competitive community in general.
Yeah, the competitive scene is it's very niche, but it's been on the grow and the horizon too. I especially with MK11, we see more and more people. Really, I'm going to think of it fight FGC as a whole. Like more and more people have been noticing the FGC. It's been definitely on the
Right.
rise in the next couple of
It's
years, and
growing.
MK11 definitely grew a lot of the competitive aspects because we were in quarantine for so long.
Exactly.
So those online tournaments that ended up happening brought a lot of people in, and a lot of people ended up joining and wanted to start competing. And we grew like the community just grew a lot for MK11 over the 4 years. I knew it was like we know MK11 kind of dragged on, for that 4 years that we had the 2 years in quarantine and whatnot. But as a community, I met a lot of great people, and we were able to grow so much to the point like it's going to be a very strong base for MK1, and I'm liking
Right.
how Bacon has brought that point up too.
Yeah, no. There's nothing that grows a scene like a new game. So a new game comes out, the scene's gonna be popping again. We're gonna do dummy numbers at those first few major events. And one thing I'm really excited for is that even with quarantine obviously taking an impact on the MK11 competitive scene, it also helped us kind of establish a really strong like ecosystem of online events. Right, there's a lot of guys stepped up to become really, really strong TOs in this scene for online events. It is easier than it has ever been to compete in Mortal Kombat, and that came at a time where it was harder than it's ever been to compete in a lot of other fighting games during quarantine. So we're going to be coming into a brand new game that's hopefully going to have crossplay with a bunch of online tournaments and a bunch of offline events. I think we're gonna enter kind of a NRS golden age with MK1 coming out, so I'm excited for it. But I think we need to talk about MK1 now. Let's get into our first topic here. So the trailer dropped, and I want to hear general thoughts, your vibes, your reactions. What's going through your mind when you watch that trailer and the long awaited reveal for the next MK game?
During the trailer, I was just like, hmm. So first off, I'm like, Mortal Kombat 1. This is going to be so confusing for you two.
I hate the
Yeah,
title.
Mortal
I hate the
Kombat
title so much.
1992. Yeah, Mortal Kombat 2011. And then you get Mortal Kombat 1 2023. That's going to be
Mhm.
hilarious for YouTube side of things.
Ugh.
But other than the only thing I have a gripe was honestly just the title because I'm like, I'm not messing with the title. That's just
Yeah.
me. But
Not a lot to
everything
complain about from the trailer other than that.
yeah, that's literally my really only complaint. Other than that, the trailer looked good. Fire Guy Liu Kang, being in, the aspect of him taking over, and this is the new era. And a lot of people making the speculation, like, oh, is this a recess? Or we're going back to square one? I'm like, no, this is Liu Kang's vision of how he envisioned things to happen. So
Right.
it's going to be very interesting to see. Like, Melina and Katana looked like they were hanging out. Like
Hell
there was
yeah,
no
dude.
beef. Like that's the biggest thing for me. Like it's really you can see some changes when it comes to the pacing of the characters or whatnot. So we're gonna. I'm having high hopes of how the story's gonna be between Liu Kang and Shang. Those presuming those are the main protagonists, antagonists from the trailer.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you have high hopes for the story. I I haven't particularly been like a fan of a lot of the NRS story modes. But what is interesting about the story trailer is kind of the new status quo that's being set. I think just purely from like a gameplay standpoint, the idea of a Fire God Liu Kang moveset and a human Raiden moveset in particular is really interesting to me.
Mm.
I'm so excited to be throwing boulders and sighs at these stupid Raiden players that can't teleport away from me anymore. I'm so excited for that.
But he's still a very good martial artist.
Oh no
Like
no no, he's gonna be
he
dope.
doesn't have the powers or anything. Yeah,
No,
you're right.
he's gonna be even cooler in this game because it's like, all
Yeah,
right, he can't teleport, he can't lightning, he's just got a big ass stick and he's just gonna swing on people. It's gonna
yep.
be hot, you know. But
Definitely still a master martial artist, so that's
yeah,
definitely going to be a thing. So
dude.
it's definitely going to interest when like you think about character archetypes and whatnot. Like I'm going off of speculation. Like if you guys like wonder if I'm where I'm going off of, like the ending of MK11 the aftermath story
Mhm.
had Liu Kang resetting the timeline, and he mentioned the Great Kung Lao and whatnot going forward, and Raiden being a human now. Those
Yeah,
aspects are definitely changing. But then alongside what we saw Shang um,
by the
that's
way, he
very
was
interesting as
young.
well. Yeah, it definitely was young. That means he's still in the timeline messing with things. So we're gonna see the interesting aspects for the story wise. Like, it's just so many directions you can go because, like I said, this is just a new era created by Liu Kang. So we're gonna see.
Right, right. And I also just kind of like the art style that they're going for. It's obviously this kind of like hyper realistic, really high graphical fidelity thing that NRS is kind of known for at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot more interesting just art direction in this trailer than I think we've seen in some previous NRS games. Like I almost was getting like Ghost of Tsushima vibes from the trailer, like as the way that like the setting they were in, like that big ass field that looks like
Yes.
the old Street Fighter Alpha stage, you know?
Yeah. It's definitely you can definitely see like because they completely said like this is only for next gen, the new gen. So that's a big
Oh
that
yeah,
for me. I
and
love
Switch,
that.
and Switch.
Yes, that's Switch. That's Switch.
Bro, that
But
thing's
I
not
really
gonna
do
run
love that.
well.
I really do love that though because making focusing the port on just only the Unreal 5 engine is going to be great for like you're not going to hinder any graphics wise for that, and you don't have to worry about like the ports between PS4 and Xbox whatever I don't know Xbox XYZ. I don't know what Xbox it
It's
is anymore. Whatever
Series X and S.
those are the last ones.
Those are the current ones. Yeah.
Then what's the ones before that?
The one before that, that was one. Don't you forget? They were on that one train before MK was.
I thought, but there was an Xbox One S, wasn't it?
I don't know.
You know what? But it's not getting into it. Before I confuse myself. Bottom line, last gen Xbox and last gen PlayStation. With them letting those
Done.
go,
Get them
they can
out of
just
here.
focus. Yeah, they can really just focus on the graphics now, and that's why I feel like it didn't shock me with the graphics because I'm like
Yeah.
this is only gonna be for next gen, so I just know it's gonna be just great. So yeah, I'm expecting some crazy like work. And then if you guys, I don't know if you saw that tweet that Scar made from Texas that he did a side by side of the pre-order bonus of Shao Kahn from for 11, and then from MK1 the pre-order bonus for Shang Tsung, and he said like the how Shao looked at MK11 for that pre-order bonus is pretty much how he looked in game, and I can probably say the same for Shane. Shane looked pretty good in that pre-order bonus when they showed him on the screen, and he's probably gonna look like that in the game.
Oh,
So
he looked more than pretty good. You know,
yeah,
I'd be down if Shane wanted to stab me with that Vega
oh
Claw.
my
You know what I
god,
mean? But oh yeah, no, there was no doubt in my mind that the game was gonna look like that. I mean, that is more than in line with what I would expect from NRS, obviously. Um, eh, I think we should wrap up our kind of general overall thoughts here and get on to some more specific topics that we have. But before we do, I do want to talk about one disappointment that I have with the reveal, and that is the PC port, right? Because once again, for another NRS game, we are getting the PC version that is being outsourced and not being done in-house by NetherRealm. And every single PC port we've ever had has some problems, right? There's, either, the patches are not on the same timeline as the console versions, and or like there's like weird things that are like different between the versions. Like I think in MK11, there's like some weird tech in the corner
yeah,
where
because
like
some corner combos straight up just do not work for certain
right,
characters.
and that sucks to me because I don't understand. I personally don't understand why like NRS can't do the PC version in house. I'm sure there's reasons, but I'm not familiar with them, and I was really hoping for this game that we would get cross-play, not only just between Xbox and PlayStation, which I think is going to happen, but with PC as well, because the PC community has kind of gotten shafted
Yes.
the past few games, and it almost feels like they're like this separate community away from like the main competitive scene, because the tournaments aren't run on their platform, right? The online events aren't run on PC. They don't get nearly as much. And I would have loved to see that PC scene get kind of merged into, along with the Xbox scene, just have one competitive scene where we all come on and play online. Sorry, Switch players, if I'm ignoring you here, but there's more issues there. But just have this one competitive circuit with something like the Coliseum events, where it's like PC, Xbox, PlayStation, all in one bracket. And it just sucks that I hope that the fact that they're outsourcing doesn't change that, but that is not a great sign for me.
Yeah, for me personally, and I'm looking at it like kind of a broader side of things. PC in general for like games, I've always noticed has bugs in general with it. Because of that outsourcing, like you said, and then other problems in general, which is why I typically do not buy games for PC. Like that's just a personal thing for me. Like don't want to like go too far off on the tangent, but like Jedi Survivor that was just released
Right,
had
that was a rough
so
port.
many bugs for the PC port, and this is a common thing I always see, which is why I never buy a PC version of a game until usually like 4 or 5 months after the game's been initially released. So I know at least majority of the things are fixed. Because it honestly is just like to me, it's just never worth it. It's just really just never is worth it. So yeah, but the people that are making the PC port were in charge of the Dark Souls remaster. I think they like
Yeah,
QLECD
I
something like that.
right. I mean, I think they're also the guys that did the MK11 port, right? Which I don't know, like people don't hate the MK11 port. Obviously, there's like some inconsistencies, but I think it's fine. Real quick before we kind of finish up this topic, I know that there's some concerns from players that I've seen when I was talking about this, at least on Twitter, of the PC version has faster response time. PC players will have an advantage, and to that I say I don't care. Um, like a few frames maybe where you could react a little faster is ultimately like reactions are so overrated in competitive play. It's a lot more about your reads and your adaptations. So I'm not. I don't really care about that. And if it becomes a problem, we can regulate it in tournaments. But at the very least, for like ranked, I want the whole player base minus Switch, unfortunately. Kind of in one player pool for me to play with. So I don't those small differences in terms of performance are not a big enough deal to justify, separating the community.
I can
So yeah,
agree. I can agree. The community does deserve to stay together. Crossplay is becoming more and more normalized for a lot of games. You see it in COD, you see it in the new Street Fighter release and all that. So we definitely want to see it more, and hopefully, like I think they say in the FAQ, is not going to be off release that they're going to do that. Unfortunately,
right.
but it's going to be post launch, and I hope that they make improvements over time to make it even better. But we're gonna see. We're gonna see. It's all about the due process. This is a speculation. Nothing's final. I'm not big on giving my opinions before the game even comes out. Because we got to see how it happens. We
Right,
got to trust the
right.
process. We got to trust Boom. We got to trust Boom.
Yeah, 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 no. This is not by any means like trying to shit on NRS right now. We are just expressing concern that and hope that things are different than they were in previous games. That's all we're doing. So yeah, I think there's a next. I think we can move on to the next topic, and that is the first big mechanic that we've had announced. This isn't something that we had to imply from a trailer, right? Where look at Scorpion was running in this trailer. Does that mean runs the game? No. This is Kameo Fighters. This is something that we've got confirmed on the website and on the FAQ, and yeah, Cameo Fighters, which to me is sounding like I can pull up the FAQ here, but to me this is sounding like assists in a Mortal Kombat game.
Yeah. So the thoughts on the cameo fighters. I actually had this discussion late last night while I was commentating the tournament, where the Kameo Fighters they're going to be in competitive play, and the reason why I think it's 100% going to be in is because of how fleshed out the Towers of Time was in MK11 with the tag assist, and
Right.
I feel like that's exactly how it's going to play like because if you guys have never seen, just look up a combo video by like V Man or Waz.
Go
Big
to go
shouts
to
to
Waz's
those.
YouTube for sure.
Yeah. They have some very good tag combos with those towers, and I feel like that's exactly how the Kameo Fighters are gonna work because just it's gonna be simply like you have a main character, but you do not play as that Kameo Fighter. Like you don't have any of their move sets. However, you can tag them in to do a pop up and other combos like that. So that's gonna be very interesting to see and how they're gonna do that as well. Um, I personally it's only somebody made a good point, but then I countered that point immediately. They had said that the Cameo Fighters is kind of slapped to the face because it's like, why can't you just put my character in the game? But then I'm like, think about this from this aspect. The biggest roster we
Development
had
time.
was Armageddon and 60, and it was at 64 players. Like, you know how much time it would take to like literally balance every
Yeah,
single one
and
of
that
those guys.
Armageddon roster, even like back then, like that was not 64 brand new character design. That was like, oh, were you in Deception? Pop. We're just gonna drop you in. The same model, same move set generally, just like
Like,
move you
man,
over. You know, those were assets were made for a lot of those characters. That's not the case for MK1. You know,
definitely gonna be a lot different with that wise.
right?
So it's gonna be very interesting to see how the cameo fighters work. Definitely for competitive, you're gonna see different types. I feel like the cameo fighters are gonna be just like I said, just like Towers of Time, and it's gonna be very interesting to see how they play, what they're gonna do, the cooldown system. If it's gonna be a way you can just play without them, it opens up a whole new horizon because it's always been people said the biggest thing they wanted back from MK9 was a tag team
For
based
sure.
tag team like thing, and they're giving that back with this, but with the little twist. And this is what Interest usually always does. They always add some sort of new mechanic, sort of new thing with the game, and that's why I feel like Cameo Fighters is going.
Yeah, like I saw people talking about this game like, man, I hope this game is more like MKX. It's more like Run, and it has like Run or something. And
Mm-hmm.
if you know me, I was not hoping for Run to come back. Partially because I think Run's a terrible mechanic, but also because like that's the MKX mechanic. You know, if you want Run, you're playing MKX. They're gonna do something new and different. And this cameo system is, it's it is already like a very intriguing mechanic just to think about now, and we haven't even seen anything on the game in action. I think that one thing I am looking forward to though is the dread that is going to come from the community as cameo fighters get revealed. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how up to date you were when the Smash games are going through their reveal cycle, and every time a me fighter gets a costume gets revealed or a new assist trophy gets revealed, everyone's like, "No, they're an assist," you know, "No, they're not base roster." I think that's going to be
Waluigi.
hilarious. Yeah, Waluigi. I think it's going to be hilarious that NRS is going to be like, yo, guys, a new trailer is going to drop. And everyone's like, yo, I wonder what character is going to be revealed. And the trailer starts, and then, like, Jade shows up as a cameo fighter. And then, like, all of Adenian Twitter is just like, oh!
Yeah, in complete shambles. Like
Just
I'm
destroy
gonna
them.
call it right now. Kodo is probably gonna be a cameo fighter.
You think so, too? Like,
I am like I feel like 100% for a fact that Kodo's gonna be a cameo
I want
fighter.
to talk about this too because I feel like there's some Mortal Kombat characters that were born to be cameo fighters. Okay,
So like,
Baraka is a character that was born to add 5% damage to the end of my combos. You know what I mean? He's gonna
I can
come on the screen. He's gonna go chop 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 chop, and he's gonna give me a new ender, and then he's gonna go away. You know,
definitely
I think this one's gonna piss people off, but like I think Cyrax is gonna be a cameo. That
definitely can see it though.
Cyrax was a character born to hop on the screen, drop a bomb, and hop off.
I can definitely agree with that one too.
For sure.
Definitely gonna have those cameo fighters that people gonna be like, man, they should have been main character, but it's just unfortunate because There's only so much room in the roster. I
Yeah.
feel like base roster wise, how many base roster wise do we have for MK11? We had 24.
Something like that, and that's with variations, which we'll talk about
Yeah,
later.
which is
But
crazy. We had two variations to begin with too. So yeah, so
right,
MK list we had like 24. So if we go in that aspect, I would say the base roster will probably be about 20 characters, and we will probably they said 7 cameo fighters
did they
on the
say
FAQ.
they said 5 cameo fighters in the in the first combat pack?
Oh,
Now, what that makes me think, because if there's 5, if the ratio for the combat pack is 6 roster slots, 5 cameos, that to me tells me we're gonna have a lot of cameo characters to
a
choose from.
lot of
Like I
cameo
don't like I
fighters.
think this roster is gonna look something like 24 characters on launch and like 15 cameo characters on launch.
I can agree with that.
I don't I think that we're like if people are gonna be like, why can't all these cameo fighters be base roster? I think we're gonna get a massive roster if you like look at every character that's just included. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I do want to.
definitely with that.
Yeah. Now I do want to talk about how these like assists like would be implemented in an NRS game because I don't think it's gonna be this copy and paste from the towers that I think some people are implying. For one, the input's got to change. It cannot be right analog stick. I know you're a filthy analog stick player and you probably love it
Hey,
that they're all
relax.
on right analog stick. But as a sophisticated arcade stick enjoyer, I am not toggling my stick to right stick mode every time I want to call an assist. We need that on a button. We don't need to talk
Yeah,
about. Yeah, we don't need to discuss that because I'm sure there'll
no,
be
no,
a
no,
lot
no.
of.
I agree. Though. It's probably going to be on stand switch. I feel like the
Yeah,
stand switch will finally go away,
I feel like
and we
with the new engine, I think they'll get rid of stand switch because I feel like that's almost an engine limitation on like how they
yeah.
animate their stuff and how they did hitboxes.
Yeah, I feel like the stand switch button will actually be the button that you actually see be the assist button from now on,
Right.
and it's gonna have like I said, different launch pop ups. Like you might have a different version of the assist because you said the right analog stick in different directions gave a different thing. So
Hmm.
holding back in the stand switch button or the assist button could give you a pop up, where one would give you pressure or something like that. It could be all those type of things.
Right.
We're gonna see.
Now,
We're gonna.
now I do think that like the kind of assist that we're gonna get is interesting to me because normally when you have assists in a fighting game, it is something like a Marvel game, like Dragon Ball Fighters, right? Games where you can jump, you can double jump, you can super jump, you can air dash, right? There's a lot of there's a lot of movement options, and I don't just mean like fast-paced movement like MKX. I mean just more movement, more spaces on the screen you can go and more spots in the screen you have to cover. And that's where assists come in, where they're just like, I'm going to cover this approach for you so you can do this, right? I'm going to, you know, and I don't know if that style of assist will work in MK, right? Like if you have because it essentially, like, the way some people I think were talking about assist, it sounds like every character on the roster could have Batman trait from Injustice, right? Just this thing that is going to put active frames on the screen while I do stuff. And that to me in an MK setting sounds kind of lame, right? Like if I have something where it's like Vegeta assist, now I get that's like a free jump in every time. That's like free pressure. That's kind of like it feels like it almost skips the neutral game, which I think is super interesting in Mortal Kombat. So I'm wondering like what kind of assist are they gonna do? Are they gonna be like, just here's just one quick projectile that doesn't have a lot of active frames, or here you could put down a bomb that's like for setup play, or hey, this is just a launcher. Here's another launcher you can do for your combos.
Definitely gonna see how it goes. It's so many aspects we can just go from that we can just think about. But like the reason why I say I was leaning towards the Towers of Time type thing because I feel like they're gonna take some of the things from MK11 and move it on to MK1.
Right. Definitely feels
Like
like a
I don't,
prototype almost,
yeah,
or a proof of
like
concept.
you don't. I don't necessarily see it straying too far from MK11, and that's a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing where it's like it's going to keep. There's a lot of people that was familiar with that player base. I mean, familiar with the game and got a lot very used to that game. And because we were on quarantine, I feel like it might have limited some of the things NRS could have did because they remember during the quarantine stage, like a lot of things got held back, delayed, and
Right.
kind of maybe you had to scrap some ideas and projects with it. So I can definitely see them pulling some of the stuff from MK11 over to MK1, and which is why I was leaning towards the Towers of Time and how that tag combat was going to play out is how the Kameo Fighters are going to do. Just speculation wise.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're gonna see. I just like I said, I'm not. I usually am a person that keeps my expectations low, so I don't get disappointed. Not saying this game would disappoint me, but I'm just like, you know what? I'm just here to see what happens, and
Right,
I'm
for
going to try
sure.
it out.
Yeah, we don't want to set expectations here. We're just having a conversation and like speculating, right, about what this mechanic could mean. I'm also a person who's not like I don't know. It's hard for me to get like really hyped for games coming out anymore. It's just like, I live my life and oh, the game came out. That's cool. I'm not, when I was younger, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm watching all those clickbait YouTube videos of so and so is going to be in the game."
Well, you
And
were
I'm
one of
really
those. Unbelievable.
right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Think you know
Now,
a guy.
one more thing I want to talk about with Cameo Fighters though is there's one thing that I think is going to be great about them, and that is I think they're going to allow you to style on people, and I think they're going to allow for way more creativity in the game, which is something that I think MK11 lacked, especially in the later years. If you look, like people think about MK11 and it has a very like kind of rigid combo system, right? There's not everyone has too many routes. They're kind of a simplified the execution in this game.
Yeah,
But if you watch those like tag team tower combo
those
videos,
combos are ridiculous.
those
Just the
that shit
crazy,
gets crazy, right? And if
like,
they're gonna have as many cameo fighters as we're talking about, that's so much more variety than MK11 ever had with variations, right? Like even if it's just like let's say bare minimum, let's pretend we live in fantasy realm and the only cameos that are going to be in the game are the 5 that were confirmed as a combat pack. There's only 5 in the game. 5 different assists to choose between with every character is already more interesting than like customs to me cuz like not characters did not have 5 viable custom loadouts, right? Like, or
mm,
5 meaningfully different custom loadouts to choose from. And I think if these cameos work the way I think they are, they're going to be like additive to a character, right? You have a base character, it's a complete character, and these cameos are just a little bit of spice being thrown onto it. That to me is more flexible than like the variation system was, right? We're like, yeah, you could customize your variations, but you kind of need a lot of this the core
mm,
of your loadout. To me, like I have a hard time seeing us getting to a point where everyone's like, yeah, for this character, you only use this cameo. For this character, you only use like there's an optimal set for every character. I think it'll be like, yeah, for these matchups, use this cameo. For if you want to do this, if you want set play, use this one. Or hey, I've been theory crafting. I have an idea that with Melina and the Cetrianus cameo, that shit goes dummy. I'm gonna mess with that. I think it's gonna lead to a lot more creativity and just the variety of sets they run, even if the differences between cameo fighter to cameo fighter don't change as much as say picking a new variation. I think people are gonna be more willing to be flexible with it.
yeah. Cameo Fighters is definitely going to open up like more aspects of gameplay and design wise, and just give. I feel like the NRS is going for that freedom. Like as Baconlord just said, like it could be a set play character, it could be rush down, it could be a little zoning, combo extender. We don't know, but like the ideas that we can think about is what makes it fun.
Exactly, the
That we
theory
can do it.
crafting.
Yes, the theory crafting really
Yeah.
can make you think like, man,
Uh-huh.
where can we go with me having a primary fighter and then I have a character that's out here like, hey, when you need me to go in and go do something, like that's crazy. That is actually crazy to think
Yeah, you
about.
have someone on call ready to cook. Uh,
Mhm.
Yeah, and I don't know about what you think about this, but for me, like NRS games haven't been like fun to lab since like Injustice 1 for me. Like when I'm labbing in NRS game, it's like, all right, I need to learn this matchup. What's this character? Where are these gaps? Let me practice flawless blocking or let me practice some execution, stuff like that. It doesn't feel like I'm like I'm gonna take my character in a lab and I'm just gonna look for new shit. I'm gonna discover something, right?
Mel, we have a disagreement with that because I had loads of fun at MKX, but you don't like MKX.
I don't like. I'll admit there's some bias. There's some bias in with MKX.
I love just the when it came to like what I could do with my character in MKX. I definitely found new things, new routes all the time with the character, and that's the beauty of fighting games in general. Like even for like Street Fighter 4, that game is like 12 years old. I still see online new tech
Right.
being found, and it just shows you like you can always find new things. Some things might be limited, but you can always find something that's new.
Right.
And yeah, MKX for me, like that was a place where I got lost in the lab because I was just always just looking for, well, what can I do with this? Wait, this works, so that means this must have to work. Like those type of things.
Yeah, it was Injustice 1 for me, where I would always go in a lab and I'm like, ooh, how can I blow up this wake up? What's the way I can do to beat this wake up? What are these interactable setups I could find? Just I know it's broke as fuck, but just looking for like cheeky interactable resets to discover and like weird ways to cross people up on their wake ups and stuff like that. Just that's what I was looking for. And MK11, it felt like outside of the variation system, which I think people were very quick to optimize. There wasn't a ton of kind of mechanics that really lets you flex your creativity and really lets you theory craft in a lot of ways. And when I'm just looking at the concept of Kameo Fighters, that gets me excited for the creativity, for trying out a bunch of different sets that uh, I think, like we were talking about earlier, people are going to be more flexible with Cameo Fighters than they ever were with customs. And I don't know if you have anything else you want to say in the Cameo Fighters, but I think we should talk about customs. I think we should talk about variations.
Yeah, I have nothing else came files. We're just gonna see how that goes. This is the aspect that we just don't know yet, but we do know about variations. We've experienced them for the last two Mortal Kombat titles,
Hmm.
and
Should they come back? Should they be an MK1?
I don't think they should.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Let
For
me.
me personally, like the variation system in MKX, that was 99 characters. So variations, if you guys are not familiar with variations in Mortal Kombat, it was basically one character. It's you have a base character, but you had three variations where they had different tools or different moves that they can use that the other variations didn't have. So some they have their base moves, like they have their standard like maybe B and B combos, but then they one might change because now they have a weapon in one variation or a different projectile in another, and that's the big thing that would change. In MKX, it was a very interesting, unique way to do it, and I did like it. But then the problem became what for me was the balancing aspect of it. The balancing aspect is what made it like, man, if I hurt this variation, it might hurt the base character. If you change, like if you tweak things with the base character, you have to tweak things for every part of the variation because the character then changes. Like it was just so much. Ah, I don't
Right.
know, like it was like, it was a lot.
Right. Well, earlier I said I agree with you, and when you said I don't know if they should come back, that was actually that was my mistake. I don't know if they should come back. I know I don't want them back. We've had this conversation before. This is something I'm passionate about. I really don't like variations. I don't. I think they're kind of like this illusion of variety and creativity to the game. When in reality, I think they kind of hurt the character designs, right? Uh, in MK11, like how many characters in this roster do you think we have that are like actually grapplers, right? And what I
There's no
mean by
actual
that,
rapper.
what I mean by the grapplers are characters entirely designed around their command grab and that being like the core of their game plan. Because, when you think about the grapplers, I think about Kotal and like Kano as like two interesting ones. But you can play those characters without command grabs. You
Yes.
don't have to equip it. Those aren't grapplers. Those are characters that can equip a command grab. You don't see
There's,
that with that archetype in other games, right?
there's no character with a base command grab. I don't think in the game. Actually, now I'm thinking
Maybe
about it.
Terminator. Maybe he
All right,
does.
Terminator is the only character. Actually,
Yeah,
right. Terminator is the only character where his base move is a command grab, but every other character does
right.
not have a base move that's
But even
command grab.
then, Terminator is not Bane, in my opinion, in terms of
Yeah.
reaction. Like there is no character that goes all in on an archetype. MK characters for the last two games, and even 9 to a certain extent, kind of felt like jack of all trades characters with a little bit of flavor in like one direction,
Mhm.
right? Whereas we look at Injustice 2, a character like Bane or a character like Captain Cold could not exist with an MK11 variation system because those characters are all in on set player, all in on
Grappling.
grappling, and as a result, those characters' matchup charts look really weird. You know, uh, they feel Captain Cold either 7-3s you or he's getting 7-3'd by a lot of characters, and but I think that's fine. I think that is more interesting, and that makes that character worth playing more than something like a mid tier in MK11, which is like they don't really do a lot better than anyone else. They're just kind of okay, right? They're kind of meh. They're a little mid. They kind of 5-5 a lot of characters. Uh, there's more in a Captain Cold. There's more in a Bane design that makes me want to play them than there would be of a character probably on a similar tier position in MK11, right? Something where Bane and Captain Cold have things in their kit that's better than everyone else on the roster. They just have some weaknesses that are worse than like everyone else on the roster.
Definitely, like it definitely creates the what's it called? How do you say it? Like it gives them variables that the variations didn't have. Like
Right.
variations, you just simply you slap something on when a different matchup is to keep the same character. Where in that game you had to know a couple characters because some characters matchups were just abysmal. And that's the thing where in this game, where in the future we're hoping like variations. I would like to see them not return and then just have a base character and just revolve around that.
Exactly.
Like MK9, I almost go back to MK9, like with those aspects, but it's not all the broken stuff that is in MK9,
Yeah,
please.
I would,
But
I would, I would point more towards Injustice because I don't think they were really on point with their character designs in MK9. I think it's Injustice where they really flexed a lot of their creativity that they could
yeah,
do with with the grappler arc. Like, there's not even a grappler in MK9. Like, let's be real.
yeah, it's not. It's definitely like rush, rush, rush. But Injustice definitely gave that aspect of okay, we have different characters for different situations. These are all kind of weird, but we like it. And I definitely agree with you in that regard. Like Injustice definitely did give that open up. So overall, we just variations is something that was very good to introduce MKX, but hard to balance. And MK11 is just like with customs being added into it, it was just like especially towards the game now is like for MK11 speaking on it, you every character usually has like one go-to variation when it comes to tournament. That's what it is.
Right.
Like the one viable thing. Like it's you can choose to play the other variations, but the one that's the most viable in tournament, everyone usually uses it.
Yeah, just because you have a lot of choices to make doesn't mean there's a lot of good choices.
Yeah.
Uh, doesn't mean that the decision you doesn't mean those decisions are good decisions. Which is why I think what we hope for the Cameo system is that they can kind of do what people hoped custom variations can do.
Yeah, we're gonna. That's something we're gonna see speculation and but like I said, the release. We didn't even talk about the release date. Oh well, we did, but like the release date being on your birthday in
Uh huh.
September,
September 19th.
it's literally that's actually on this day
It's
exactly.
four
That'll be on
months.
what 4 months. That is
Yeah.
4 months away, which is crazy to think about. Because like for me, if anybody heard me, I said this game was it will come out till next year. If
I
not next year, I was gonna say like November, December, which
and
is
I
basically
and
next
I called
year.
you a liar.
Yeah,
Uh,
because I'm like, I was surprised when I saw that said September 19th release. I said, "Hey, yo, what?"
well, yeah. Well, they did
That is,
this. They did this for 11 too. Like 11 was announced at like the Game Awards, and then it came out in April, just like a few months later.
yeah,
Right? Like, there's something that I know a lot of people in the scene were complaining, like, "Oh, it's taking so long. It's taking so long for it to be revealed." But my thought was always, I don't really care how long they take to reveal it because I think it's gonna come. I think once they do reveal it, once they do let the cat out of the bag, we will be in the home stretch till release. Right? Like we
which
are
is
going to
crazy.
get a ton of reveals, kind of condensed into a lot shorter of a marketing campaign for NRS than a lot of games do. You're not going to get the here's the reveal come back in 3 months when we'll have something else to talk about, right? Or like, hey, here's a title. We'll see you guys in like a few years when we're ready to talk about Elder Scrolls 6, you know?
So we're gonna, yeah, it's definitely gonna be something that we're gonna look at, and definitely aspects for it. Um, I just like for me personally, variations is not something I want to see come back.
For sure.
I would like to see them like all characters have their own archetypes, and then see it goes from there.
Yeah. And especially when it comes to like customs. Like you ever
Yeah,
heard that it was like that kind of thing that people talk about where like losing something hurts way more than gaining something. Like
yeah,
losing $5 hurts way more than like making $5 feels good. That's kind of feel how I feel about like customs, where it's like, yeah, let me experiment and let me build this new loadout. Oh, this is interesting, but like, man, I missed that other move. I miss those moves that I don't have. Right?
definitely an aspect. Yeah,
Yeah, my hope is that for characters feel complete in MK1 without cameo fighters, and a cameo is just additive to what they do. Whereas variations are like a base character is not a real character. A character if you without customs in X or 11 is not a real character.
yeah. It's like they require too many things. Like you have the foundation for the cake, but just not the other ingredients, and it's just like,
Right.
not all the
You just
same.
got dough.
You just got dough. Like you don't want just dough. You want everything else that comes with it.
Exactly,
That's,
dude.
that's the
You
beauty
want
of
a
it.
little you want some chocolate in there. You want to throw
Yeah, I'm a bit of a strawberry type of person. You talk about some chocolate, bro.
you strawberry guy. I'm a big strawberry guy too. I mean, strawberry chocolate. That's a combo right there. You
Not
know.
a bad combination. Actually, no, I ain't gonna go into that because then I'm going to a bad tangent.
Let's go
But
into it. No, let's go into it.
no,
We can
I
take a
actually
tangent.
so by mistake one time, we have a Portillo's thing out here, and then by mistake I ordered a what's it called?
Chocolate cake.
A no, a strawberry and chocolate shake mixed together,
Ooh,
and
was it cooking?
it it actually was kind of cooking. I'm not gonna
Ooh.
lie. I actually surprised myself because I was like, wait a second, this actually seems like it's the wave. Like it's actually great. Like
I
I
might have
couldn't
to
believe.
think about. Is that like on the menu or did you just
No,
freestyle
I
it?
legit asked for a chocolate shake and then asked for strawberry too, and then they thought I was supposed to mix it together instead of
Oh,
it, and I was like, it was actually kind of good. I'm not gonna lie.
that's that. Hmm.
I'm not gonna lie. I actually shocked myself a
Yeah.
bit.
Everyone coming to town for Combo Breaker. Keep that in mind. That's some tech courtesy of Tento. All right. Well, we talked a lot about variations and cameos. Now let's just talk MK1 gameplay and what we hope, right? And I think specifically, I want to talk about the mechanics of MK11 and what we think is going to come over to the new game and what we kind of want to see stay in MK11. Because, well, let's start off with this. For me, there's a few mechanics that are kind of MK, right? When I think about MK games in the NRS era, I'm thinking of block button. I'm thinking the counter poking mind game, the way it's played out in NRS games with low pokes, not being able to link in anything, and jailing into your highs, stuff like that. I think that's core to the way MK games feel to play. And then I think a lot of other stuff is flexible. Maybe like I guess like strings, string based uh, combo system is another one. But other than that, like, is there anything else you want to add to that list? Anything that you're thinking like it has to come back for it to feel like a Mortal Kombat game?
Um, surprisingly, the block button.
Right. I mean, that's the biggest one, I think.
Yeah, the block button is probably one of the biggest things. I feel like it being a tag game, like a tag like game. Some people like have fear of it being a back to block game, but I'm like, nah.
I don't get where that's coming from.
I guess it's speculation. Everybody has different things, but
Right.
yeah, I was just hoping for just really just don't let Regen maybe to come back.
I
Don't
would.
never,
I
never.
I think they should reevaluate the way meter building worked in previous games because I'm not personally a fan of the way previous games work, where it's like, oh, this character has a string that has more hits in it, or they have a projectile that's multi-hitting, they will just always have meter now, right? Like if you're a character that has one of those dial-in strings where there's like 5 hits in it, your character just builds more meter than everyone else. That I'm not a
Yeah,
fan of. Like cough, Starfire, cough, 2, 3, close sparkles, trait. You get like
so
30
much,
bars, so
so
much
much.
meter, an absurd amount of meter, and so I think there's like different ways they should adjust that system. But overall, I think making meter management like a real skill check again is something that I would love to come back. Even though I don't hate the MK11 meter system, but I think it should
I
stay in
do.
MK11.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
do.
go
The
off.
fact of regen meter is actually insane to me. Like, it just comes back over time. You don't need anything to do. You don't need to do anything for it to come back. It's crazy. Like, and I know in the aspect you said you earned it back. It did. Some I do admit it did help with pacing a bit because
Hmm.
of you not be able to, like you just said, throw out a freaking projectile or multi-hidden string, and then because and in the rest games, if your opponent is blocking your pressure, you get meter. It just created oppressive situations where if your character had good buttons and multi-hidden buttons, they gain bar
Right. Like
crazy.
I think about like matchups like the Poison Ivy Deadshot matchup in
Oh my
Injustice 2
god.
at launch, where if I'm full screen against Deadshot, my projectiles aren't fast enough to interrupt him. I kind of just gotta walk in and like he's building meter, I'm not building meter. Like I get that's as a zoner player, I understand that's an advantage of the zoning archetype. So my problem isn't that he's building meter and I'm not. It's more he's building a lot more meter than I am. Just to just too high of a degree, in my opinion.
Way too much, and that's the aspect of, like, I agree with that, but like just for you to be able to do nothing and get meter back is like that was the thing for me. I was like, nah, there's
Exactly,
got to be
too far in
some
the other
way.
direction.
Like you need some ways to earn it. I see what they meant, and the reason why I said the pacing wasn't bad is because like it was on a timer, and it would take some time for you to get your meter back, and so the pacing wasn't too bad. But the fact that you didn't have to do anything to get bar back, like no nothing to neutral, that was what was crazy for me. So that's something I definitely want. I hope does not return with MK1 gameplay, and then other than that, like regen meter, fatal blow wasn't terrible to me.
I think Fatal Blow can be tweaked and be
Yeah,
fine.
and also
Cause
another.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cause I don't. Do you want to go back to pre MK11 where characters just didn't use their super in any serious level of play? Like, do we want to go back to where supers are just things for less competitive players to have fun with and to put in trailers, or do we want them to actually have an impact on competition? I think that's the question with Fatal Blows is because supers are cool. Supers are cool in tournament. I like seeing supers when I watch other fighting games. I like seeing, I like watching a tournament. Like, oh, he hit his super. It was really clutch. That was cool. Um, but I do think it's with Fatal Blow, like there's some ways you can like even if it just like went away on whiff or on block and it didn't come back. Like that's an easy fix that would uh would make it more interesting.
Definitely would. It's it's tough, but like I agree, I agree, I agree. I just hope, I just hope for the best. Like is the game is a little far out, and I want just the best aspects in every
Hmm.
aspect of the game to be great. And I hope like they had this pot in the oven for like 4 years. So that's why I'm
Right.
saying, like, overall I want this to work, and I feel like it is going to work because of
Right.
that. So time will tell, but generally wise, it's I'm only scared because how much stuff might come with from MK11. Like, for example, like you said, we said Fatal Blows wasn't too bad. Now here's an unpopular for me. Crushing Blows, I actually did like. It's just the fact that they
Yeah.
were not balanced. Like, we could just take a characters like Liu Kang and Scarlet, for example. Both characters have decent mid, decent zoning, good buttons, auto shimmy, and all that. Just the aspect that was the biggest deciding factor. Liu Kang's crushing blows were amazing compared to Scarlet. And that is and when you take into account like crushing blows can literally make or break a game, that is huge, and that's why he is better than her because as fighting game characters, Liu Kang and Scarlet are both solid. But how MK11 is played, Liu Kang is loads better than Scarlet because he plays MK11 well, if that makes sense.
Right.
So that's something where I'm like, what my biggest problem with MK11 was the fact that some characters played the game better than other characters, even though every character in that game, in my opinion, is viable and are great fighting game characters overall. But the way how MK11 designs, some characters benefited more, and that was my issue.
Right.
So, Lisa,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just a fighting game thing too.
yeah,
You know, I'm not really. I don't really. I'm not too concerned about the balance from Mortal Kombat 1. Like, I'm gonna tell you exactly how the balance is gonna be for Mortal Kombat 1. Okay, I'm gonna leak the balance for the new game.
weeks
It's gonna
about
launch. It's gonna be horrifically unbalanced. There's gonna be a bunch of broken cameos. There's gonna be a bunch of broken characters that are gonna be super silly, and you're gonna be able to, you know, take a clip from a match of someone doing some really stupid thing and post it on Twitter, and you can just farm interactions, right? And then time will go on. There'll be balance updates, and people will be like, "Oh, this is a terrible change. This is so bad." And then we're gonna get to the end of the game, and we're gonna look back, and we're gonna be like, "It's not. It's fine. It's not that unbalanced. It's okay, right?" But there's always gonna be characters better than others. And there's always gonna be characters worse than others. I'm not. That's not my concern when it comes to crushing blows. My concern with crushing blows is, I mean, we did it already. You know, not only did we do crushing blows in MK 11, we did them in a lot of other games. We did them in Soul Calibur 6, right? We did them kind of with that crush counters in Street Fighter 5. You know, like we have done this conditional kind of big effects when you reach certain requirements for moves in a lot of fighting games. And this kind of like in the last like couple of years, I I think that like I don't hate them. I don't hate crushing blows, but I want to see something new. I want to see them
it.
change up the game like they do with a lot of NRS games.
Okay, agree with that. Agree with that. Yeah, that's all we hope for that, and that's why something I always say NRS is pretty good at is showing something new off,
Right.
like flawless blocking mechanic.
Uh huh. Oh, we can talk about flawless block.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that too.
We didn't talk
That
about it.
mechanic on paper, I liked it. The problem
I
was
liked it
we
too.
as humans always exploit things that ways that we did not. I know by the end of the way this game is set up now, MK11, I know developers like this is not how we intend the flawless block to be used, and it is being used in the most craziest of ways. My goodness.
This is where we're gonna beef a little bit because I really like flawless block. I don't want it to come back for the same reasons. I think that should be, I want that to be the MK11 thing. I don't want us to go into the next game and have flawless block be another dominant part of the meta. But for MK11, I really like flawless block personally. I like how it changes the way you play defense in big ways. It changes the question of, you know, with like armor, because like armor in like MKX was a very like one note kind of mechanic in my opinion. It was, you know, do you armor or do you not, right? And for me, if you're the one doing on the offense and you're worried about armor, your question is, do I hit a button or do I not? You know, how do I blow? That's how you blow up the armor. Do I hit a button and risk getting blown up with armor, or do I not and try to bait the armor out? At MK11, it's not do I hit a button or do I not. It's okay, which button do I hit? You know, what's the it's less about, you know, yes or no, and more about varying degrees of like how you're timing your attacks,
When do I press the button?
putting little delays in your pressure. You know, just like little like I love the way that the flawless block has evolved. Now it's a very powerful mechanic. It's a very influential mechanic. So if you don't like flawless block, you're not gonna like the game. But I liked it. You know, I like seeing it develop and, you know, seeing it become such a big part of the meta and be so influential on how people make decisions. But because it's so influential, I don't want it to come back, at least in the way it is. Like, I could see them bringing back flawless block and like, hey, if you time your blocks well, you won't take chip. You know, you don't up two or up three, but like, yeah, you can reduce your chip you take, or maybe build a little meter. I could see it coming back like that, but I don't think the reversals should come back.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, on paper, I liked it, but like how it was exploited was the part where I was like, And I do agree with you like with the mind game of it. I love the mind game with like you do a string and it's like, man, are they gonna flaws block? Am I gonna flaws block? Can I flaws block? Can I bait them doing that? That little mind game I did enjoy.
Hmm.
But it came a time where it's like, man, it's a mechanic that's like it's way strong when I was like I saw the flaws block on hit was my problem with that.
On hit's pretty crazy. I like it still, but it is crazy.
That is like ridiculous that you can
Yeah.
literally do that on hit was the problem. I'm like, man, some pressures should be kind of skewed. And yeah, like that was the like I said, it was the exploiting that made me be like, okay, this needs to be reworked. But new game, new time. We're gonna just see how it happens because I can say for MK1 is gonna bring in something very new to the table, especially with
Sure.
Kameo
For
Fighters,
sure.
and we're gonna see how that flushes out for real.
There's one more mechanic I want to talk about. And this is one that I think you and I are going to differ from a majority of the scene because we've talked about it before. I want to talk about Breakaway and Breaker and how we and do we think these mechanics should come back? And if so, how should a Breaker be implemented in MK1? Because
And
I think, people don't like Breakaway. I think that's fair to say. But I think some of the reasons people don't like Breakaway are kind of dumb. If we want to
of
talk
course you do.
about
Me
that.
personally, out of all the NRS titles, my favorite form of that was Clash.
Same.
Clash is by far my
Clash is
favorite
goaded.
because it's really the mind game of you only get it once, and you get to gamble your meter for it. And it's
Yeah.
really and then a whole bluffing aspect of it too. Like you can bluff and say you bet meter when you didn't bet anything at all,
Right.
and you get health or you can do damage to the person. That is a great mind
Yes,
game.
and how it's a one-time use mechanic, but it affects the way you play the match even when you're not going to clash, right? How I'm going to keep this thing unclashable. I'm going to, because I'm meter down or I have meter, I want to force the clash. I want him to clash, you know. And there's just so many like with clash as a mechanic. There were so many different ways and philosophies that players would approach it. You'd have players that are I'm gonna clash really early on the round, or I'm gonna hold on to my clash till the end. Yeah, that that to me is what was really interesting about Clash is that there's so many different ways to approach it.
So many ways. And then moving on to like MK9 and MKX, I'm gonna compare those two. When it came to Breaker,
I hate these.
Breaker and MK9, I can't speak too much for because I didn't play too much for it, but it just more so like get off me tool and then reset neutral.
It was
And
X Breaker without stamina requirements.
yeah, but then then Breaker MKX became a big problem because of the stamina bar because you had run. In the beginning of
Right.
the game, the person who broke lost all their stamina, but the person who didn't break had their stamina. So basically, what they would do is they would break and then they would just run right back in because guess what?
Mm-hmm.
You just knocked me away, but I can run in. You don't have any
Yeah.
stamina, so you can't backdash. You had to have stamina to backdash, but you use all your stamina for the breaker.
Yeah, you're in the corner
So
against a Tempest Lao and you break, and he's like, that ain't no problem. I'm just gonna keep
yeah,
doing it.
literally, like, and then plus 27 hat. Yeah,
Yeah, that
like
man was
that was
building meter, like
ridiculous.
we were talking about earlier.
So and then they changed that at the end, so they when you broke both players lost their stamina, so both people could not dash in. So that was decent. But then Breakaway came about. Now on paper, and then for my personally, I do like Breakaway. The part that I did not like about it was the input for it. It was down and block,
Right.
and you had to be airborne, and
It's
at
a
the peak of
frustrating.
your airborne to make sure so you would get a lot of times it will either not come out, and it will come out when you didn't want it to. For example, if you get hit by a random projectile and knocked out of the air randomly, and then you hold block really quickly, but then you tap down by accident, you would have got Breakaway by accident, or you're just blocking low and you get hit, and then Breakaway comes down and you lose all your defensive meter. And then that was the one aspect. And then the biggest aspect for me was you had to be airborne to do it. So if you kept your opponent in a standing state while they were getting hit, then they would never be able to break away. And
Right.
that aspect made me mad because there's some characters that greatly benefited from that versus others. Some characters
Yeah.
could literally make you heal a whole 40% before you had to break, and some characters had to launch you, and
Yeah.
they could break immediately.
Yeah, I'm just thinking
That part was
about
what really was
I'm thinking about Jackie and Melina when you talked about that. Jackie, a
literally,
character that can do
like
40%
literally,
before you leave the ground. Whereas Melina is a character that, after a roll, you can always break away. There's not
like you can literally, as soon as you hit the air, you can break away.
exactly. Um, Now, I want to talk a bit about breakaway here because this is where I think I differ from maybe from you, but I know from most of the scene is that I prefer breakaway to breaker, right? And now I'm not saying I love breakaway because I think breakaway has some messy implementation with it, but to me, breaker as a mechanic is so boring because there's no checks and balances to it. It is, do you have the meter to break? Yes. Uh, do you want to break or not? Yes or no? That's the only questions that can be asked. Some characters could because you couldn't break projectiles, so like Katana could do some anti-breakaway stuff, right? Like Cyrax and MK9 had some cheeky anti-breakaway breaker stuff. But those were too those were too niche scenarios for it to be really a big deal. So as an attacker, as someone who's landing a combo, there's no interaction between the two players on that decision to make. It is a single player decision in a way. And my favorite fighting game mechanics are the ones that force both players to into conflict, that force both players to make decisions that impact each other and change and alter future decisions. So when I think of like a really strong breaker system, I think about Burst from a lot of ArcSys games, right? Which those who aren't familiar, Burst, it's kind of like Breaker in the sense that you just hit the buttons and your character pops up, but it actually has a hitbox. And what that hitbox means is that you can bait it as an attacker. You can stop your combo short, block the breaker, block the burst, and you blow them up. That's a really interesting mechanic to me, is the fact that there's some back and forth where if I know you're gonna break, I can fuck you up for it, which you couldn't do in X, right? You could not do that. You can kind of do it in MK11 with certain characters, but which I like. I like how there's you have that kind of interaction there, but it was just too limited. Like I want to see them with a breaker. If they're gonna have a breaker system, I want to see designed from the ground up with some universal counter to it that every
Yeah.
character has that is universally applicable in a lot of situations. I don't want to see situations where, yeah, in this spot they can't there's not enough gravity for their anti-breakaway move to hit, so you can always break her here. I don't want to see that. I want to see at any point in this combo they are a threat to blow up my breaker. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I can definitely agree with you in that because I definitely do like Burst as well. In that aspect, when you made that comparison, Burst is definitely something I enjoy. And then going back, it's like you said, like the balance between the two. Like, for example, in my opinion, the perfect character when it came to like the breaker system was actually, in my opinion, Scorpion. Because like, think about this for a second. So Scorpion, he had the thing where his main damage was off his launcher with teleport, but then you could break away from teleport. But if you didn't want them to break away, you do spear, but spear had scaling to it for the damage. So in that aspect, I feel like Scorpion was that perfect balance for Breaker, where if you want the big damage, you go for the pop up, but then they can break away. But if you don't want them to break away, you go for spear, but you lose out on damage. And that's the aspect I feel like was missed for some of the characters because, like a character like we just said, where Jackie, where she can keep you standing, but you hold 40. Where Scorpion, he keeps you standing, you can hold at max like 27. So
right.
that was the thing that really was like, it was there, but like not every character was balanced in that way. So yeah, it's something like I agree with you. It's I wouldn't be mad if it came back, but it definitely needs to be tweaked in some categories.
Yeah, and I think one thing that could really change it in MK11, something that I advocated for during the life of the game, is kind of force a long delayed wake up, right? Because I think the big thing that everyone hates about breakaway, and we haven't brought it up yet, is the fact that you can break away, and then if they're still in recovery, you can blow them up. You can punish them for it, right? That's really stupid. That is really dumb. I don't like that. I do want there to be consequences for breaking, right? Like I like the fact that if you break in this game, you're on the floor with no wake ups, and if I'm ready for it, I can kind of fuck you up. But yeah, like the fact that you need to learn, like the fact, like how do I put this? I understand that like breakaway safe combos is a part of the meta right now, right? Where if you're a high level player, you really shouldn't be in that situation where they broke away at a time and now they're punishing you because you did something, in your combo that wasn't breakaway safe. But that's not an interesting like decision to make. Is do I do a breakaway safe combo or not? That's not interesting to me. That's not dynamic in a sense. It kind of if it's a decision that kind of feels like you're limiting yourself more than you're reading your opponent. Because if you do read them and you're like, oh, I'm gonna do a breakaway safe combo, ooh, and they broke away, it's like, okay, well, I didn't get a reward. I just did less damage, and now I have Oki. Like that's not interesting. There's nothing. I want to see like if I know you're gonna break away, and I read it, I want to fuck you up. I want another combo. I want damage on damage. I want you to be fucking dead. I want to go to the next round. You know?
Yeah, the force delay definitely did make a thing, and break away from combos like you had to second gaze, and that's when they added an armor break
Mm-hmm.
for that move. And it's like, okay, if you want to break away and they read you break away, let's give them a reward by giving them more damage or a pop up for reading
Right.
that. And
Yeah.
that became for me that became kind of a problem because I like the idea once again, but it was just the fact that some people benefited way more from their armor break than other characters. Like for example, we're going to go Cabal. Cabal, in my opinion, has top 3 armor breaks in the game
For sure.
because of the aspect of if he reads you, you gotta hold that damage. But then if you make the read that he's going for the armor rig, and but then they make the read that you're looking for that, and they go for their extender instead, now you had to hold more damage than you already like. It's that mind game that's like, hey, what do I do in this situation? And this is just another read on the defensive tool. And like I said, I didn't mind it. It's just the fact that some characters have way better ones than others.
Right. Right. That's why I talked about at the beginning of this segment is universalize the system. Because I
Yeah,
think
like
armor
really.
breakers are a really cool idea. I'm glad they went in that direction. And there is something to say that when you add a mechanic like that late into the game, you might be like, some characters shouldn't have that. Because MK11's a game where not every character does a lot of combos, right? So I could see, because like I think if you look at the variations that did get armor breakers, it was a lot of the ones that didn't have combos in them, that didn't
Mhm,
have launchers. So I
mhm.
think they were looking at it as this character juggles you a shit ton. They don't need anti breakaway as much as this character who is going to get one launcher opportunity, which is off of like a down 2 KB. And when that happens, you can't just be like, the opponent can't just be like, I've been holding breakaway for this one situation. I'm going to do it now and get it out. Right? Because they don't have time to burn that out of you. They don't have launchers to kind of force it out. So I think that's why those characters got it and others didn't. Just kind of a consequences of some other systems and other design decisions they made. But yeah, I want that burst system. I want the ability to kind of really I want it to be a situation where when you're watching a top eight or you're watching a tournament and you see someone bait a breaker, you're like, oh, that motherfucker got red. Like a
Red bad.
book. I want it to be KI style where the guy gets on the mic and just goes counter breaker.
Like literally,
I
you got
want
red.
I want people popping off.
It is great, and that is a great aspect to have. So, yeah, in my opinion, like I agree with Bacon in that aspect. That burst definitely works the best. Like burst, the aspect of like, okay, you can break during the combo or during block pressure, but I can bait you, so I get even a bigger punish, and now you have no way to get out of this. Oh, yeah, you gonna hold this ass whooping. That's a great aspect to have. So, MK1 in that aspect. I would probably more so suggest. I will say that Breaker is probably going to come back, but it's definitely going to be tuned in a way that Because we
Right.
got new QR testers and we have Dizzy in there.
Right.
That makes me really happy that Dizzy's in there too. So like,
Oh
it's
yeah.
gonna be great.
Yeah, no,
So yeah.
I have a lot of faith in the people making the game. I'm not when we criticize some of the mechanics in previous games, we are criticizing them from the perspective of this is the fourth year we've been playing the game, and looking back on it, like these criticisms developed after a long ass time of playing the game. These are not NRS doesn't have the advantage of hindsight like we do. And let me tell you, when the game like I've loved every NRS game for at least the first year or for the first year or two. Some like MKX I kind of fall off with at the end, but I think I love the work NRS does. I'm really excited for this new game. I think it's going to be a great time, even if I don't love every mechanic or I love or agree with every decision they make. I'm gonna get my money's worth. I'm gonna compete in this game. I'm gonna have fun with it, and I have a lot of faith in those guys to give us some new, interesting mechanics to play with. Uh, and yes, so yeah, the people at NRS, I have a lot of faith in. A lot of those developers, decision makers, and especially the QA team, because that QA team is loaded with Chicago NRS talent. Let me tell you.
I'm like, yes, sir.
Yeah, shout out to
We're
Stephanie.
happy for it, bro. We're happy for it for real because
Exactly.
like I said, these are those are like past players too that's been in the competitive scene, and like for me, that's why I love because they know like somewhat of our mindsets and how like we view the things, and they're looking at it from like the competitive side of things, but they also like we have to always remember that this is a lot more casuals play the game as well, so they have to. It's hard. It's from the NRS side of things. We got to think about how hard it is to balance those two. Like you got to make it
Right.
good for competitive, but then it's like man, like we have a very big casual base too that like to enjoy the game, so we have to think about both of those directions. So that's also a thing.
Yeah. Now, anything else you want? We've been going over for almost an hour and a half, I think. So, is there anything else that you really want to talk about? That any mechanics that you think, any hot takes you got? I'd love to hear them.
Hot takes wise, this game is definitely going to take a lot of people by storm. I 100% agree. I can 100% say that just because of how Cameo Fighters is going to be such a like. I feel like it's going to be such a big prevalent thing
Hmm.
in the future, and it's definitely going to shock a lot of people in regards of this might be like I might keep it like it's going to be definitely the top of a lot of majors coming into that next year.
Oh yeah, and that when it first launched,
Mm-hmm.
maybe Street Fighter 6 puts a dent in that a little bit,
Yeah,
cause
that does
that's
was
big
million
too.
dollar $1 million prize pool. Like, geez.
But MK1's gonna have its time for sure to really be a spotlight in the FGC.
But it's more so like it's just about patience right now. You know, we waited 4 years, now we gotta wait 4 months. As simple as that until the game comes out, and then we're most likely gonna get we most likely will get actually some. We might see some gameplay at the summer fest awards,
I think
summer
I
video game
think
awards.
uh, I think the PlayStation Showcase coming up in a few days is going to be the first spot.
I feel like we just might get the trailer again, and then that will be. I don't see them showing gameplay. I see gameplay being showed this summer, but hey, they made me eat my words before once, maybe again,
Right,
but. And that aspect of like I have a good feeling, trust in the process, trust those people that worked on it,
for sure.
and I feel like we're in for a very good show come September 19th for real.
Exactly, exactly. Plus beta in August. That's exciting.
Yeah, but it's in August. Yeah, crazy.
Uh, yeah. So I think that's a great discussion. I think that's a good place to end off on this podcast. This is episode 1 of the Let Us Cook podcast. Let us know if you guys want more of these. If everyone hates this, we can stop if that's a big problem for you guys. But I think we would love to talk a lot about this a lot more. I would love to have another podcast once we do see gameplay and we have a lot more to kind of break down and to talk about. I would also personally would love to do a podcast where it's not about MK1, but it's about MK11, and specifically something like Combo Breaker, right? Like doing like a
Oh
kind of
yeah,
like a prediction stream or like a recap
we gotta do that in 2 days because
podcast.
it's literally like a week away.
Yeah. Maybe a recap podcast.
Yeah,
But yeah, like maybe have some guests on in the future if people are interested. So yeah, just let us know. Like, do you want more of this? What kind of content do you want to see?
because I'm that.
Yeah, I know you and me. We both definitely want to do this. Do more. So I highly doubt this is gonna be the last episode of the Let Us Cook podcast. Um, but yeah, any closing thoughts from you, Tento?
Oh, honestly, guys, like just really just trust the process and wait on this game because I feel like it's gonna be just a great time. Definitely, my biggest thing is I just need to see gameplay, and
For sure.
I definitely want to see it by that summer game fest. I know you're saying the player showcase, the PlayStation showcase might show something, but like
Yeah.
I really feel like it's probably just gonna be another trailer, maybe a little bit like more on the collector's edition. But I feel like the summer game fest is gonna be like, you know what, it's showtime. That Boom's gonna show out because NRS is already gonna be up there too. So and Warner Bros too. So like it's gonna be, we're gonna see.
Right. Exciting times coming up. We're gonna have a lot to talk about
Yep.
leading up to release, and then when the game comes out, we're gonna have a lot more to talk about too. I think we got like a year's worth of shows. Personally, we're not gonna hit a drought in content anytime soon.
At all.
So yeah, take care, everyone. Thank you for listening to and hopefully enjoying the inaugural episode of the Let Us Cook podcast with Tento and Baconlord. Subscribe to whatever channel or service this gets posted on, and yeah, let us know what you want to see in the future. Take care, everyone.
You guys be safe.